Good afternoon, people. Welcome back to Triumphant TV. The place where we give you the real, the raw. We're coming with a young lady that I've known for a very, very long time. But I've learned something recently about her that I did not know before. So we decided to have a little conversation about it so you can understand the power that's out there trying to do some very creative and educational things for the young men in our communities and in our schools. So, what's good, Aisha?
Hello, hello. Good afternoon, my brother. How are you? Good to see you.
I am I am quite well. I am quite well. I'm glad we can make this thing happen.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. So, can you tell the audience about yourself? Give them a little, give a little taste of what we're about to get into.
Sure. My name is Aisha Beverly. I am currently the CEO of Aim Higher Ed Consulting. So I do educational consulting for schools and districts that involve coaching, curriculum review, mentorship for leaders, whole gamut of things. I am a former New York City principal and assistant principal, and I will be defending my doctoral dissertation in about less than 2 weeks on the topic we're going to talk today about the efficacy of classroom engagement for Black boys in our early elementary classroom. So, doing a few things, but that's where I am right now.
Okay, so we talk about a doctorate. We know that's not easy. That's real work. And for those who do not understand what that work is like, you have to present your findings in front of people who have already done the work and is going to scrutinize and tear apart everything you have to say. So when somebody tells you they have a doctorate, you better believe they put the work in. So the stuff that we're going to talk about today, you can be well prepared that she knows what she is talking about. So let's do this. Let's do something a little different. Give me your first childhood memory.
Mm. Around education or just anything?
Just anything.
I have a childhood memory of, oh goodness, childhood memory probably being outside, growing up in the South Bronx, in the projects, and doing kind of like a race around the little, like inside you have the grass or whatever, and you have the
Right.
three buildings. So doing the race with a group of my friends from the building, probably that, just being with my friends in the building, that's probably my earliest
All
memories.
right. That's dope. That's dope. That's dope. So far, I've had a myriad of answers for that particular question, but yours is happy. You have a happy one. You have an
Oh
absolute happy
yes,
one. That's
definitely.
great.
Happy
That's
childhood.
great. So good, good. So that's why you're so awesome. Um, Another thing, let's ask this question real quick before we jump into this. What should the fourth grade literacy statistics force educators, families, and policymakers to confront?
Hmm. Well, part of my research states that two-thirds of Black males who aren't reading proficiently by the end of fourth grade end up in prison or on welfare. So that has teachers, policymakers, educators alike all confronting the fact that Black boys in particular need to know how to read proficiently, hopefully by the end of third grade, in order to make a dent. Because what we've learned over the years is fourth grade test scores are actually some of the data that's being used to build and staff prisons for the future. So what is our
Wow.
literacy? What is our literacy curriculum looking like? What is our literacy instruction looking like? Those are the things that should be and have been at the forefront of educational policies as well as practices in the classroom.
All right, fantastic. Listen, got another one for you. Should I give my child an iPad, iPhone, and let them be on it all day?
Is that even a real question?
Yeah, that's a real question because there's parents out here who need to know.
Yes, I know. Absolutely not. Now, that's the short answer. Absolutely not. Now, do iPads and other technology have a actual purpose for being in either even in the classroom or at home? Absolutely. Absolutely. With moderation and with intentionality. Does a child need an iPhone? No. For what reason? People say emergencies, contact, things like that. Schools have been built to handle emergencies far and wide for many years. Your child having access to an iPhone inside of the school is a small blip on what would need to happen if an actual emergency arises. In the classroom, technology is being used in an intentional and educational format. So, having access to their own technology, iPads, iPhones, is really obsolete and it's not necessary. So, am I saying no screen time? Absolutely not. It needs to be monitored and it needs to be intentional. Because one tip as a parent, if you don't know, if you have your settings on YouTube for autoplay, that will take your children into worlds that you had no idea existed. So they can start off watching this cartoon that's harmless, maybe Peppa Pig, and then about 4 or 5 episodes in, they're watching what looks like a cartoon. So when you look over from your cooking, they're looking at something animated, but they have deep and dark themes talking about suicide and murder and all types of things. And I've seen it time and time again as an educational leader in the schools with the different things that come up with cyberbullying and suicidal ideation. So that's a long way to say iPads, iPhones, for especially for your young children, unnecessary.
Okay, great. I'm behind that 150%. I've been trying to blow this particular horn for a while now because the data that's coming out is saying that our kids are reading slower because of their on the iPad. They're not actually opening books to read. Their creativity is being stifled, and because their brains are at a functioning and growing capabilities, it also has been deemed to be addictive, almost like drugs, because they're always on it. They're always getting notifications and all these other things, and it's
Absolutely.
really changing the brain's chemistry and how children interact. So as we dive into this particular topic, we're going to dive into. I wanted parents to understand that this is a holistic uh, framework of education and how we should be raising our kids in our communities. Because I'm gonna just double back for a second. The people who created the iPad, the iPhone, Instagram, and those things, they do not give their children access for more than a half an hour a day.
Right.
They do not give it to them because they know the
Mm-hmm.
the um, the addictions and the problems that can occur. So, sis, let me do this real quick, and then we'll jump into further into this interview so people can understand who you are. So, team, again, as always, welcome to Triumphant TV, the space where we do the inner work out loud. This isn't motivational fluff. This is purpose. This is healing. This is faith. This is discipline. This is real life. If you've been walking through life just trying to adjust, not thinking you're really free, you are in the right place. Because triumphant isn't just about getting hit, it's about learning how to get up every with intention. So whatever you're doing right now, I need you to take a second and breathe. Breathe one more time. Shake it up, shake it off your shoulders. Let's lock in. Each episode will come to you with language that you've been carrying all your life to change the way you look at things. So I need you to do me a quick favor, like, subscribe, and share. So let's get into it. So, sis, for those meeting you for the first time, I really want them to understand who you are and why you work in education.
Who I am, and why. Well, I mean, I work in education because I found out a little later in life that it was in fact my passion and I was actually good at it. So when I left college, I didn't have, not that I didn't have a career path, but everybody was saying, oh, you should be a teacher, you should be a teacher, your mom's a teacher, it just makes sense. And it really wasn't, I wasn't feeling it. I didn't want to be a teacher. I wanted to do something else. So when I went to college, I majored in computer programming at the time. And then the first semester, second semester, I found out that pre-calculus was involved in that. And that was a no. So I went into school, I majored in English, and I came out kind of knowing what I could do, but not really having a firm idea. So I went into customer service and I was doing a lot of customer service and just unhappy, hated it, hated talking on the phone, hated arguing with people. And I'm sitting there like, okay, you have this bachelor's and you're arguing with people about why their phone bill is so high when they're calling long distance. Like, this doesn't even make sense. Buckle in. What are you going to do? And I did that for 10 years, and it's like, lock in. What are you going to do? So I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to be a teacher. That's what everyone's saying. I can get off of work at 3 o'clock. I can have summers off. I don't have to work on a weekend. I can be on my daughter's schedule. That's what I'm going to do. And then I went to keep teaching and found out that is absolutely not what happens. People think that that's what happens, but you're never out at 3. You're working through the summer and you're doing all of the things. But as soon as I stepped into a school, and I had been in a school because my mother was a teacher, so I was in her classroom and I knew
Right.
about the environment of school. But when I stepped in as a substitute teacher to begin with, and I was in a classroom and I was responsible and I immersed myself in what was going on, I'm like, oh, wow, there's a need. I can see myself here. I belong here. And honestly, the whole entire genesis of this study started as a substitute teacher in a third grade classroom, and I had a young black boy who was a double holdover. So that meant he was supposed to be in fifth grade and he was sitting in a third grade classroom. And the first time I walked in the classroom, some other teachers are like, oh, watch out for this one, and this one. Their behavior issues, all of these things, all of this negative talk. So I go in and, I meet the kids and they're funny. They're like black boys. Black boys, black men have a certain essence, a certain je ne sais quoi about themselves, and they just have this charisma that is just palpable. So he was a funny kid, and I would do my lessons, and I'm going through learning what it looks like, and he was always participating. He was always giving me answers. And when we took our first quiz, it was 5 questions, and he got all 5 questions wrong. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Like, literally, before we took the quiz, he answered all of those questions. And
Wow.
it ended up being like a Cosby Show moment when Theo found out about the dyslexia, because I'm asking him,
Right.
I'm like, but wait, and I'm asking the questions, and he's like, but that's not what you said. That's not what the question said. I'm like, but it is. So then I realized, like, okay, something is going on. So I was able to have a conversation with some people, and long story short, he ended up getting an accommodation for testing where he was able to speak his answers and someone would scribe them
Nice.
for him. And he excelled. So all of this time, he spent 3 years in third grade because he couldn't pass this test when there was just this one obstacle that was there that no one cared to lock into, because he was talking, he was on the floor, he was fighting, and his behavior didn't say I have a need to the people who needed to help. So from then on, when I saw that and I saw out how he began to excel, I said, okay, there's a reason for me to be here, because I need to see these things. I need to be able to be that voice in some capacity. And that's really where that work started about 25 years ago.
Nice. So I got to ask this question because that's a powerful example of how our kids are being failed. So I have a two-part question for you. The teachers who were pointing out the misbehavior, what nationality were they?
What I will say is,
Read between the lines. Read between the lines.
what I will say is, in this example, yes, they were of another persuasion, palm colored, if you will.
Okay.
But that is not exclusive throughout my experiences in education. Sometimes you will have teachers and administrators that look like us that are casting the same type of oppressive systems and structures on boys that look like us. Now, some of it comes from here, and you can only do what you can do. But some of it is, yeah, they're us, but not us like me, if that makes sense.
I was going to
So
ask that question. What was that? What was their level in society, like middle class, upper middle class? You know, where were they at to have that particular mentality to say, you know, I'm not going to look any further into this child because he's just a problem.
sadly, the same status that most of the
Oh
kids
wow,
came from, maybe
wow,
about a step above. Because what I find is people of upper echelon, regardless of the race, sometimes have the opposite effect where it's the pity version. And oh my goodness, oh, let me save you. Oh, let me help you out. More over
right,
empathizing. But
right,
you will be amazed at the people who came out of the same project, went to the same school, had some of the same experiences, but don't have the level of empathy and or equitable practices that would be beneficial for all of the kids that are sitting in front of them. That was probably one of the biggest
wow,
things that shocked me, because I'm expecting it to come from different angles. And while it does, to have it come from home, so to speak, was
right.
shocking to say the least.
Okay, wow. So let's do this. Let's kind of back out of that for a second because it's important. Um, and I'm saying that because I think we should begin to advocate for our children the same way I suggest people advocate for themselves at the doctor's office. Like just because somebody's saying something doesn't mean it's true, right? Just because somebody said this little boy was out of pocket because he appeared to have behavioral issues. He really had a situation where he wasn't what was on the paper when he read it didn't register for what he was hearing out loud, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's why I like Montessori schools because they give you that ability to kind of go into the lane where you excel at. If you excel in math and you're in the second grade and you excel in math to fifth graders, you sit and do math with the fifth graders. You know, so
Mm-hmm.
your levels are at a certain point. So I think that's something important that we should kind of look at
Mm-hmm.
as a community because our boys are being stifled back because of a myriad of things. It could be
Mm-hmm.
problems in the home. It could just be mental problems. It could be just the way we're wired because we're all wired completely different. And
Mm-hmm.
and what I'm hearing is the educational systems kind of have this one lane, like this factory of here's what you need to do, and we're let me back up because I don't want to jump into the testing and all that stuff right now.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about your growth. You say you came in as an assistant teacher. How did that process grow until you became an assistant principal and a principal?
Well, as I said, I started off my career in customer service. Then I went into a school as a permanent day to day substitute. So, so technically I was supposed to go in each day and go into different classes. And I did that for the first part from April through June. That's when I went in and I just went into this one school, and anywhere they needed coverage, I went there. Then in September, I went to another school where they had a long term substitute position. So I was still a sub, but I had my own third grade class, and I did that for a year. While I was doing that, I worked on getting my master's in education and then my certification. So I became certified in childhood education from grades 1 to 6. And that next year, I began teaching in an elementary classroom. So I did that for maybe about 12 or 13 years. And during that time, I had different positions like a grade leader, kind of like that lead person on the grade that would help out colleagues and do different things in a pseudo leadership position. And then I became a literacy coach, and that was for teachers where I was kind of like a peer mentor and worked with them. My specialty is literacy. So I worked coaching, giving feedback, and lesson planning, everything that went into literacy. And while doing that, I went back to school and got my license in school building administration and school district administration. And a couple of years later, I went in as an assistant principal, and I did that for about 5 years. And then I transitioned to being a principal. I did that for about 2 years. And then transitioning out, I became an educational consultant. During that time, I formulated my own company for educational consulting, but I did also go, and what I'm currently doing now as well is working for another independent educational consulting company, and I'm also an adjunct professor as well.
Oh, nice, nice, nice. What is that like being an adjunct professor?
It's funny because it is rewarding when you're teaching the next level of teachers and having an understanding as a teacher as well as a building administrator what new teachers come into schools with and what they don't come in with. So having that book learning but not having actual practical experiences. So
Okay.
it's rewarding having that opportunity to during the lesson say, okay, so this is what the research says, this is how you do this thing, but this is what it looks like in the classroom when they're throwing books and each other and all types of things are going on. These are the strategies you can do. These are the tips that you can do. So it's rewarding working with the graduate students who are in the schools part-time doing their student teaching and showing them like, okay, so here's the scenario you had, this is something that you can do, this is a takeaway that you can have. So really being able to affect what's happening in the next group of teachers that are coming in, it's really rewarding.
So that's awesome. Listen, if we back up a little bit, you when you said part of your growth, you had the opportunity to mentor other other teachers in that particular environment, and now you're doing it on a professional level. What does that look like, right? To mentor another teacher, what are you seeing from the positive aspect, and what are you seeing from a negative aspect?
Well, in the system that I was in as a literacy coach and as a teacher, it was twofold. So, new teachers always get a 1 year of mandatory mentorship, and that comes from a veteran teacher. So, you could still be in the classroom and be a veteran teacher and provide mentorship. I was doing it as a classroom teacher and then later on as a literacy coach. So, that really looked like, for me, what it looked like was really teaching, showing the ins and outs of what it looks like to be in a school building, be in an educational environment what that looks like. A lot of times the newer teachers were also younger teachers. So really coming into the workplace for the first time. So really understanding this person that I'm mentoring through this mentorship program, what are their needs? Are they brand new to teaching, brand new to the work world? They need a certain set of skills and understanding. Am I a veteran teacher and I'm just new to this system, but I still get this mentorship? How do I come to you with the information you need? And then as a literacy coach, my mentorship was basically around instructional support. So I'm coming in, I'm watching you do this lesson. Okay, this is great. Here's some tips. Here's some support. You told me you want to work on this. Let's work on this together. Let me show you how I would do it. Let's do this together. And really just supporting and having that meeting of the minds to guide through different steps. So now, after having this experience, I'm able to, of course, still mentor teachers, but I can also mentor coaches who were in my position to show them how they should be mentoring their staff, and then also mentoring leaders. And so you're an assistant principal, you're a principal. There are a million things coming at you every day. Here are some of the systems and structures that I set in place. These are some ways that I looked at turning around, building culture, and working with teachers and staff to try to get a cohesive unit. These are the things that worked well, and these are some best practices. So really, broadly, being a mentor is about being a thought partner.
Right.
Because you're not coming in and saying, these are the answers, this is what you need to do, this is what makes sense. Because it's not one size fits all. It's saying, hey, these are some of the things I experienced. These are some of the things that I went through. This is some of the information that I've gleaned from school, from workshops, from professional learnings, from podcasts, from books that I'm reading. These are the things that I'm finding. This is research. This is best practices, and having all of that to be able to have those conversations, because I have mentors myself. So it's all
Oh,
a
nice.
cycle of learning. And sometimes people say, oh, when you give kind of these hokey lines like being a teacher is being a lifelong learner, but it really is. If you really want to, so
Right.
as a leader, where I am now, I'm still a teacher. At the end of the day, I can still walk into a classroom and teach a lesson the way it needs to be taught. I'm still learning. I'm getting information from students, from teachers. Like I just said, I have mentors on my own to help me with where I am in life. So mentorship never stops. And you may achieve a level of mastery in certain areas and have an understanding of what best practices are and what they look like, but you never hit the ceiling of that because there's always
Right.
something new to learn. I was just in a fourth grade classroom the other day teaching a literacy lesson for test prep. Now, the kids asked me if I was alive in 1862, like the passage was, but and all of those things, it brings you back like, okay,
Right.
1862, come on, guys. But those are all of the things that you need to continue to do great work at whatever level that you're on.
All right, great. Let's do this. Let's kind of back up. You said something earlier during the process. How do you teach a how do you teach the teacher, right, who has a disruptive class or disruptive individuals? What is the method of bringing the class back into focus? When you have, you're going to have, for lack of a better word, you're going to have Tony come to class today. He's hyper. He's all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
How do you bring him in? How do you keep him engaged?
Mm-hmm. So first and foremost, if you are a teacher and you feel that your sole job is to come in and teach whatever it is your specialty. Elementary teacher, all of the subjects, middle school, high school, some specialization. If you feel that that is your sole job in the classroom, you're already starting off wrong.
Okay.
Because sometimes the last thing that you do is teach. You can't do
Wow.
that. You have to know the whole child. So you have to be the mama, the daddy, the auntie, the uncle, the counselor, the social worker, the probation officer. You have to be all of these people before you can get to the point of teaching. So some teachers either don't have the desire or the innate skill to do the one thing that helps with that disruption and the example that you gave. You have to build community. That's one. You have to build community in your classroom so that they feel a part of something, they feel connected to something, and responsible for something. So the achievement of this class is built on everybody here. The downfall of this class is built on everybody here. Now, does it always work? Absolutely not. It's not cookie cutter, but you have to set that up so that there's something to fall back on. And I just had this conversation this week. Your systems, your structures, and how you present yourself in the beginning of the year and set up your class is what is going to drive you for the rest of the year. So I had a teacher that would put her name on the door and say, "This is my classroom." Now you look down the hallway, you have the teachers' names, the kids' names with apples and stars and all types of
Right.
things. Welcome to class 403, whatever it may be. And she was a veteran teacher and dead set, "This is my class, nobody else's name goes on here." What kind of community is built there when it's only for you? Now, did she have
Right.
a lot of disruptions? No, because she was a disciplinarian. But that
Okay.
doesn't mean that community and investment was built there. So, what I tell the teachers that have those discipline issues, because you have them and they're more and more prevalent every day, build that community, build the expectations together. If you come in and put that post on the wall and say class rules, you failed already, because rules are made to
Right.
be broken and they're looking for
Yeah.
ways to break them every single chance they get. So, are we doing a group project where we put down some chart paper at the tables and say, okay, so this is our class. How do we want our class to run? What are the expectations that we have for our class? Come together and do that. That was my first day of school activity. Each table group gets their chart paper, their markers. What do you think we should do in this class? Okay, now present. Okay, so you're telling me that in your class you think that everyone should raise their hand and take turns before talking? Okay, great. Why? Have that conversation. Okay, so
Right.
now let's come up with 5 or 6 of them. So these are the expectations. So does everyone agree? This is how we want our class to operate? Perfect. Okay, everybody, let's sign this, because now we're committed to having
Right.
our class run this way. Okay, so now let's have another conversation. If we forget these expectations and we're not meeting them, what do you think are some of the things that should happen if we're not meeting these expectations? And they give,
Nice.
oh, have a meeting, have this, call a parent. Okay, so let's make levels of that. So on the first day of school, I've established this is how we want our class to run. This is what's going to happen if we forget and how we remind each other. And this is how we're going to move forward. So I can always look back and say, oh, wow, I'm hearing this argument across the classroom, but if I'm not mistaken, we said that this is how we're going to solve disagreements. This
Right.
is what we're going to do. So there's always something to fall back on. So having structures, systems, routines. How are you incentivizing students if you need to, if you want to? How are you calling them to task? How are you helping them achieve their goals? So being intentional about systems, structures, and routines. What does that look like in your classroom? That's the first wave of being able to combat some of those uh, disruptive behaviors and different things. And then also being able to lend yourself to not always having it perfect. Because if we take it back
Right.
to when school was first constructed by Horace Mann back in the 1800s, the way we do school right now is mimicking how it was set up back in the 1800s. So
Really? Wow.
rows, seats in rows, raising your hand to speak, all of these structured things that we have in school were set up back in the 1800s. And we're still following it because that's how it was. So, of course, we have different places that are doing so many phenomenal things. They're doing flexible seating, they're doing Socratic seminars and things like that. But really getting away from the rudimentary way school was done. I went to Catholic school for all 12 years. So I had a certain lens of what classrooms and education was supposed to look like. And walking into a public school as an adult, as a teacher, was kind of like, you can't do that. You're not supposed to do that. Because in Catholic school, it was like
Right.
this. So
Right.
I had to relearn things. So being open to the unconventional, even though it's not unconventional, but looking at the times. You spoke about in the beginning, like with the technology and everything, I call it a microwave society. If you're getting everything in
Right.
30-second to 60-second bursts, and this is how you're getting your information, am I going to sit on a rug, crisscross applesauce, for 30 minutes while you talk to me about whatever it is
Absolutely
you're
not.
talking to me? I'm not
Absolutely
doing that.
not.
And research
Right.
shows that every person has the undivided attention span of 1 minute for every year that they've been alive. So if
Wow.
I'm 6 years old, I have the potential for 6 minutes of undivided attention. So let's just say I'm perfect and I can do that 6 minutes of undivided attention. Are you going to
Right.
do a 15-minute mini lesson? I'm gone after 6 minutes. Now, we haven't taken into effect this time, this day and age where if the video's over a minute, I'm not watching it. So you have
Right.
that's deducted. Then you get into the ADD, ADHD, all of these other things. If I'm looking at 6-year-olds, I may have 3 minutes of undivided time. How am I being intentional about that? So
Right.
understanding the research, understanding where we are today in times. And I don't mean because some people mean, oh, that means getting up in front of the class and doing a TikTok lesson or something like that to keep up with the times. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. What I'm saying is understand when they're watching these videos and these shows, the pulses and the wavelengths that are coming at them subliminally that we're not looking at are pulsating and grabbing their mind in a certain way.
Right.
So they've done some research as like Sesame Street and Young Einstein, the pulse per minute of what's emitted in the video from that time to what's happening now was significantly slower. So the way they were processing media, or we were back then, is a lot different than the way they are getting media pulsated to their brain waves now. So taking all of that information into an account, having an understanding of what that looks like, and making adjustments, because we cannot continue to be the teachers that we had, the teachers that we know, the teachers that we've seen on TV, because adjustments do have to be made. So if we
Right.
stick in the thought process of, well, if they want to learn, then they're going to be quiet. And I literally just heard
Right.
that 2 weeks ago. I have the information that you need. If you want it, you're going to listen to me. If you don't, oh well. Oh, well, interesting.
And these are kids.
Kids.
And these
Yeah.
are kids.
This was in a fifth grade
Wow.
classroom. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So a
That's
fifth
that's
grader
that's
has
crazy.
the emotional maturity to say, you know what? You're the teacher. You have a lot of information for me. Let me sit and take that in. In what world?
Right. Right. In what world? Exactly.
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
I'll be here tomorrow. We can try again tomorrow. I'll come back tomorrow. We can do
Right.
more. We'll try again tomorrow. Let me uh I have two questions for you so you can kind of if you can rock out both of these at the same time. Having this pathway that you've taken, assistant principal, principal, how did that shift for you to make your own educational platform where you're now inside the system but operating from outside the system? How did that come about? And my second question is, how important are parents in this process? So if you want to answer the last one first and then go back to the building, we can do that as
I'll
well.
go back. I'll do the building first because that's easy. When
Okay.
you're in administration in um, a capacity that is student centered, if you consider yourself an instructional leader first as opposed to an administrator, then
Right.
um, you're operating in the ability to transition into the work that I do because you are leading, instructing, and guiding your staff in a way that is student centered and looking for student achievement and impact. So that's easily transferable into the the requirements that are needed to be a consultant and come into schools from the outside in. Because the only difference is what you did inside of one cyclical building is going into different buildings and now doing the same thing and imparting the same wisdom.
Okay.
So it's easily transferable. Parents are extremely important. And it's tricky. It's very tricky in terms of the reliance that happens for parents. So I guess the way that I can say it the best is establish your class, your school, your district in a way that parents feel welcome, invited, collaborative partners, as opposed to mandated or shamed if you're not, because there's so many different reasons why parents are unable to always be present that I don't think we fully understand. So you may get the bigger picture of, oh, they're always working so they're not going to come, or they're in bed so they're not going to come. But the same way you have to understand the nuances of your students and why me not doing my homework is deeper than me going home and getting on video games or just not wanting to do my homework, is the same way we need to look through a deeper lens of, I'm not coming to any parent teacher conferences or anything because I don't care what's going on with my child. There's so many different reasons. Working, I don't have the option to take off for whatever it is because I barely got this job. They aren't lenient, they aren't empathetic. And if I take off for this and something else, like the child is sick or I'm sick or something like that comes up, now I've used that. So, and backing up on that, a lot of the times parents have 100% or close to faith in the school. Like, I found a good school, I'm sending them there, they're good. So I may not be able to make this event, that, but I know they're good. I like the principal. I like the teacher. I like the school aide. I like whoever's there. And I know my child is going to be good. So they're comfortable in that. You also have the fact of shame. Like, I don't want to talk to the teacher because I'm not as smart as them. I don't
I
know
was
as
going
much as them. And
right,
and that is their own beliefs, things that they came up with, whatever it may be. But I don't want to go in there. I don't want to have those conversations because I don't want them to think that I'm not up to their level. So it's important for them to be welcome. So giving them the invitation, giving them the opportunity to join in at whatever capacity is good for them. And if you're ashamed, if you're scared, being inviting, hey, come in and just sit and do this, come and do that, and making it more widespread where that comfort level is there. So if it is a issue of something that they're believing that may not be factual, it's more of a comfort level. But I've always operated in my classroom as well as an administrator. I need to act as if I don't have this 100% from the parent, because I can't
okay,
depend on that if it's not available to me.
right,
So, am I going to say, you didn't do your homework, so until I speak to your parent, you can't do this thing? No, homework is between us. We're right here. So,
right,
you and I are going to figure this out. And parent is involved in emergencies, things like that, where you really need to come in. But I don't like to lock the pressure in and hold child and parent responsible for things that can be done in the classroom. Now, would I love it? Absolutely love it. So looking for ways to make it comfortable and collaborative for parents to join in and be a part of it, because they are a part of the learning and pushing it all forward. So that's
right.
something. And looking at early elementary, I love programs that start at infancy. So, giving parents books and having programs so that they can read to children and do all of the things in the home before they even get into the school building, just to get that step up. So, anything to help and just be a cohesive partnership, I feel is so important.
So I'm gonna not necessarily push back a little bit, but I just want to explore the because I personally think, I just want to put this out here, that the parent, school, and everybody who's housed in the school dynamic is extremely important for the education of the child, for the overall education of the child. So how do you, or how would, let's back out, because we're dealing with your business, right? Your company. So how would AIM higher education teach, bring a bring have a child? Let's say we'll talk about the child that we first talked about when we first began the podcast, right? How do we bring the parent in, right? So we can point out what the child's need is, right? And how they could look for certain things at home. But this person does not have the educational background that you have, and they might feel the shame. How do you how do you marry those two things so that they work?
I think it boils back to the same thing with building community in the classroom. Building community with your parents first, where it's not about this parent event. So, this one thing we do a month, or this one thing we do every 3 months, or this parent teacher conference. Having the school and everyone involved available throughout every day. So having those conversations like, oh, hey, you have a free minute? You want to come in and sit in on this class and just watch what they're doing? having kind of that open door policy and availability on a day-to-day basis where parents are comfortable hearing what it is that you have to say, because you have to understand
Right.
students that have challenges, reading, behavior, whatever, they've likely been hearing it since they started school in preschool.
Right.
So they're
Right.
not sitting still, they're not listening, they're not reading, they're not this. They have been hearing that refrain from 3 years old. So you talking
Right.
to me in second grade about I need to do this, I need to do that. I've been trying something since they were 4 and it's still not
Right.
working. So having that understanding, making it comfortable where the school is not this place, but it's also a home as well. So when you have these conversations, the conversations aren't accusatory or from a deficit
Right.
mindset. It's from an exploratory area as well as informational. So, hey, I've noticed that Tony has been having some challenges with reading. And what I've noticed is he doesn't really know sight words. So that was something that they practiced back in kindergarten. Do you notice some of the same things when he's at home? Is there any times or anything that you do differently with him at home that has been working? Okay. Have you ever practiced sight words with him at night? Like maybe had flashcards or something like that?
Right.
Get a
Okay.
conversation, get a dialogue going. They'll open up. They'll tell you, well, their first grade teacher did this and that worked for a little while, but then it didn't. So get an inventory, be exploratory about it, understand, and then say, okay, well, you know what? Based on what we're seeing, I think if I give them a little baggie with 5 words a week, do you think that when he comes home, you can take like 5 minutes, go through it with him, and then when he comes into school, I'll do it with him for 5 minutes and then we'll regroup and, set a plan. So it's not, this is what's wrong with your child. This is what we need to do. And this is what you need to do in order for it to work. It's, hey, this is your child. What's been going on? What have you noticed? Have you done anything to help with this problem? What has it been? Do you see success? Do you think if we tried it here, that will work? Well, let's come up with this together. You can do it on your end, we'll do it on our end. How do we merge the minds? So it's the same thing, but changing the lens of the conversation is, I believe, would be more effective in terms of bringing
Right.
everyone in on the same page. Because, I mean, systems work perfectly. If everybody is working in tandem on their end, that's a perfect world. But how we get everybody on the same page is important as well.
Okay. I'm glad you brought that up because it's pretty. I'm glad you said that because it's pretty important for this conversation. Like I said, I think parents are really important for the overall education of the child as well as the community. My mindset right now is, or my thought pattern right now is, what do you do with the parent that doesn't want to get involved? Like the parent that you've reached out to and for lack of a better term, they are extremely ghetto or extremely unlearned, and they act like they know. They got the Dunning Kruger effect, right? They think they understand what's going on, but the mindset is so far apart, or they're caught up into the system of partying and all these other things. They had the child, and the child is just something, a part of their process of living. I have this extra bag that I gotta rock out with, and I drop it off at this place every day. How do you pull? Is it possible to pull them in? Is there a strategy to pull them in to get them to understand their child is their future and what their child is looking at from their standpoint could be blocking the child's education? I know I just hit you with a lot, but
Hmm.
I'm just really curious. How
No,
does that work?
I get it. You let them rock,
Okay.
and then you let them reflect. So I've had those conversations, those mindsets thousands of times. Ultimately, they end up being my best friend because it's how you approach them, it's how you talk to them. And everybody is not effective at doing that, and it's not going to be received well from everyone. I just have the
Right.
benefit of being able to have both worlds. So I understand it. I've lived it. It's not like, oh, I have this education and I'm away from it. I,
Right.
I know where ratchet comes from, know how to do it a little bit too. So we can talk that language when we need
Right.
to. So
Right.
it honestly, and unfortunately, this is not something that's taught when to be effective. What I would teach into if I was in a school would just kind of be the same thing, like get the parent in if you can, try to have a conversation, allow them to take the lead, allow them to put them as the expert of their child and ask for
Right.
them to give you ideas and tips, and then give them yours. Like that's kind of the streamline thing. As the if you can do that with them, I call them in, and I like the reflective, again, exploratory conversation. Okay, talk to me about why you feel it's okay to be out here on the street and your child not doing X, Y, and Z. Talk to me about it. What's your thought process? I want to understand, so I know where we need to go from here. And having
Wow.
open-ended questions, and I mean, if you know who you can do that with. And then it's
Right.
reflective conversations. Okay, so how do you think that is going to impact what this child needs to do next? And let me ask you, are you concerned with that? Because that's what we need to start with. Are you concerned with
Okay.
the general well-being and education of your child? Because if you tell me no, I know where to go with that. If you
Right.
tell me yes, I know where to go with that too. And having that
Okay.
understanding. So if you're checked out, you don't care, and it's whatever, fine. I'm right here. What can I do? What can we do in this school to support this child for the time that we have this child in the best way that we can, as well as giving them tools for when they're not with us? Because at any given moment, that parent can say, you know what, I don't like those people here. I'm going to move you to this school. What's that little
Right.
thing I put in this child's toolbox that they can use when they go wherever and they're with whoever? What are the words that you speak to them? What is the thing that you bury deep down in them so that wherever they are, whatever they do, they can lean off of that? So that's important, and that's something that happens regardless of the situation with the parent. I see what's going on here. I understand that. It's you and me. What are we going to do, and how am I going to build you and support you? If you can bring that parent along for the ride, most of the time you can, because the ghetto, the ratchet, the all of the thug mentality of how you're going to come in and do whatever is a shield for something else. It could be
Yes.
what they're remembering from when they were in school, what they experienced when they were in school. And
Right.
do you always have the time to unpack it? Probably not. But if you come from it from a growth mindset as opposed to a deficit mindset where it's that's ghetto, there's ghetto, keep them out my building, and I'm not dealing with it, as opposed to okay. And I mean, for me it's like, oh, okay, you coming in with that foolishness again? Okay, well, you know what, I'm gonna need you to stay over there, get yourself together, and when you ready to talk, we could talk.
Right.
All right, okay, so
Right.
what's the drama now? Talk to me, tell me what's going on. And really just being meeting them where they are, because
Okay.
ultimately in 25 years, 26 years of education, I may have met one parent who genuinely did not care anything about their kid. Didn't care about
Wow.
whether they lived or died, didn't care about their
Wow.
education, didn't care, maybe one, and that was like a half of one.
Okay.
Everybody else, regardless of how they come at you, what they do, what they say, how they appear, and all of those things, is ultimately they want the best for their child. How they present that is not always the best, and you can't
Right.
always hear that or see that, but that is the ultimate foundation of what it is. I just want the best for my child.
Right.
So coming
Right.
from that lens, I want the best for your child too. I didn't even have that child. So if you come from
Right.
that mindset, this person only wants the best for their child, then we already have a common ground. It's just about
Right.
which pebbles in the pond we step on to get to that end result of the best for the child.
Okay. Okay. Um, while you were speaking, I had a thought about because like you said, you are blessed to grow up in both worlds, right? You can talk about being ratchet. You can talk about your educational background. You can kind of be right in the middle. What happens to an affluent teacher who has never had those experiences? How do you teach them to look at these things and not just go, they don't care, um, but if you approach them this way, you might be able to pull them in. How do you get that? Because some people have this shield over their faces, and they just see one way. Oh, this person is loud, and they're boisterous, and they just act out of sorts, and they
Mm-hmm.
kind of shut down. This is why the child acts that way because of this. Like, how do you have that teacher's mindset convert or switch to say, hey, let me look at it from a different angle, right? So, because the parent really wants to be involved, they just don't have um, they're just not articulate to explain how they can get involved because they don't have the educational background that person does.
They have to be willing to hear it, and you have to be willing to say it. You have to be willing to name it. So that's not something you can teach. You
Okay.
don't teach that because that's not a skill you can pick up. The skill that you need to have is an open mind and a desire to understand. So if
Right.
you have a desire to understand, then you'll be quiet and you'll listen. And those around you have to be willing to name it and not tiptoe around it so that you can be aware of it. When I became a grade leader of fourth grade, I was probably in my fourth year of teaching. We were in the Bronx, and there were four brand new teachers and just coming into teaching. Three of them were young Caucasian women. And the principal was like, I need you to get them ready, blah, blah, blah. And we had a tough school. The kids were tough, the parents were tough, and behavior challenges were going to persist. So before we started school, I'm like, okay, tell me, what you've learned about classroom management, all of these things. So I don't know where this refrain came from, but somewhere along the way, they started telling new teachers, don't smile the first 6 months of school. Don't smile.
Don't smile.
Don't smile because the students need to know that you're serious and you're this and you're that. So they told me that. I said, they're going to kill you in the first week.
Right.
Because, top of line, kids are the best BS detectors out. So you not
Right.
smiling for 6 months, they don't believe you. You playing a role. So now
You
you
don't believe
cannot be
me.
smiling, but we're going. We're going
Right.
at you. Now where I may
Right.
not smile, it's just because I don't smile. They know you got a little bit of RBF. You not smiling. They get it. They understand that. But when you can't pull it off, you can't pull it off. So what I told them, and I said, listen, we had spoken for a little while, and later, again, you have to know when, where, who that you can have these conversations. And this conversation I had as a teacher, I had similar conversations as a leader, but I had to change it up. And when I tell you what I said, you'll know why. But what I said to them was, listen, I hope that you will take this in the vein in which I'm giving it to you, because I believe that you want to do well for the students that are coming into you. So if it offends you, let me know. But this is what I need to tell you. I said, on the first day of school, when you're standing on that line and you're holding that sign saying, "Oh, Miss Beverly, this is my class over here," I said, immediately, the parent and the child are going to be like, "Ugh, look at this white chick." The parent is automatically not going to have any respect for you and just be like, "This white girl, stay off my phone." The kid is going to be like, "I can run over this teacher." And there's going to be a narrative and a perception immediately when they see you. You have those first couple of minutes at that line to change that perception and or get a thought process going that is different. And when you get in the classroom that first day, is going to establish who you are. And the only thing you need to do is be who you are. Right. Don't try these gimmicks of, "I'm not smiling, I'm doing this, I'm doing that." "Hi, I'm whoever." "Hi, I'm Aisha. It's so good to meet you. I'm glad that you're in my class." Whatever it is. And then you have to show and prove for the rest of the time. Are you authentic in what you're doing? Are you clear on what you're doing? But you have to have the understanding that this is the perspective they're coming from. This is the way they are viewing you. So understand it. Now, how are you working with that? So that was one of the clear. So you have to know. And I told them, you're not here to save anybody. Not your job.
Oh, okay.
You're a teacher.
Okay.
You are here to provide instruction and be all of the different things that this child needs you to be. Maybe even this parent needs you to be. But you are not the savior, the great white hope coming in to save all of the children from the ghetto and bring them into a world of knowledge and academia. That's not your job. But some people come in with that lens. And coming from that viewpoint makes interactions inauthentic and they don't land. So you're not coming in as this benefactor who's saving these kids. You're coming in as an intentional, passionate, and knowledgeable educator who's looking to work as a thought partner with the parents and make the best academic success for the children that you have in front of you. That's your job. Now, if you save children along the way, if you are getting them to another level of academia because of what you're doing, perfection. Your job is done. But if you come from the lens of, "I'm going to save you," you're going to fall flat every time.
Right. So let me ask this question before because we're going to wrap up in about another 20, 30 minutes. I want to ask this question. When you walk into a school from your new lens of your own business, right? How do you know if a school is healthy or needs some deeper work?
From the door.
From the door? What's at the door that says that? What's at the door that says that?
It depends on the setup of the building, but how it looks visually. Is there? Are there anything inviting, like a bulletin board or posters or anything right there in the front when you walk through the door that's inviting? Is it clean?
Okay.
Your first interaction, most likely, is a safety agent. What type of energy is that safety agent giving you there? Usually you'll walk beyond there and you'll get to the main office. That main office is the hub of the school. So what does that look like? Is everything in disarray and there papers here and paper there, papers there? Is it clean lines? Is it inviting? Or is everyone
Right.
in a space? Do you have people laughing and cackling across the room, cussing and carrying on? An unprofessional environment, people eating. What does that look like? So those first two
Right.
stops get, and the main office is the heartbeat. So that tells you what you need to know. Then as you go through, what does it look like in the hallways? Uh, who, because like, oh, custodial. It's not about custodial. It's about students and staff. What do you care? How do you
Right.
care for your home while you're here? Looking at bulletin boards. Some people, when you look at from an administrative lens, there's certain
Right.
requirements and thought processes and things like that for bulletin boards. I'm not looking at it from a leadership lens. I'm looking at it from, this is the first impression that your school is giving to anyone who comes in. So not about the, did I put a title? Did I put a rubric? Did I put this? But what does it look like and what is there? I have been to schools where the work that was on the board was torn from a spiral notebook, where the spiral
Wow.
charts are still on the end and it's pop, pop, and it's up on the bulletin board. Some
Right.
kids writing in pen, some writing in pencil, one piece pen and pencil in there. So set aside the observatory part from a leader of what a bulletin board should look like, but think about the intrinsic value of what
Right.
you put out. And if whoever is comfortable putting torn, smudged paper on a bulletin board on the first floor, right at an entryway, and leaders are okay with that being there, that
Right.
speaks volumes of the school before I even speak to or see anyone. It tells you
Nice.
immediately what you're looking at and what you're going to,
Nice.
and then you go in, you talk to people, you see what's going on, and it's proven 9 times out of 10,
Okay.
because that can
Okay.
tell you what the culture of the school is like, what classroom
Right.
management is like, what the just the threat of the school is looking like. All of those things tell you immediately.
Okay. Um, you said about the safety person. Is that the security guard? Is that the person that sits at the door?
It
Um,
depends on the system. Yeah.
right.
It depends on the
Okay.
system. Like if
So,
you're in a New York City school, it's usually a school
uh
safety
huh.
agent. You may
Uh huh.
have a private security person there. You may have someone from the office sitting there or another school staff member, but that's the person that greets the people when they come in, and should be, in this day and age, the person that's signing people in, looking at your ID,
Uh huh.
signing you in to ensure that you are okay to come in, because there should not be a school anywhere where people are just walking in without presenting ID and signing in.
Right.
So whoever that
So,
first
so,
person is.
so, what if you walk into the school, right, and the person is at the little desk, and they're slumped down, scrolling on their phone, got the whole hard look on their face. Like, what? So, what's the what? How do you correct that? Is that something that you have a conversation with them with about, or like how do you correct? Like, how do you? Because hearing you talk, it makes me almost think about a greeter at a department store. Like you walk in now, you walk
Mm-hmm,
to the store. Hey, how you
mm-hmm,
doing? Like
mm-hmm,
I'm hearing that. So what do you do with a
mm-hmm,
person who just feels like I just take this job because I need to pay a bill, and I'm just
mm-hmm,
sitting here on my phone. I'm going to take your ID and have you sign
mm-hmm,
in, but
mm-hmm,
my presentation of greeting you is like, how do
mm-hmm.
you change that?
Well, as a school leader, you're changing that because that person is a part of your school culture. So
Okay.
if you treat them as that agent, that security guard, that person over there, and they're not a part of it, then you're going to get that detachment. But is that person a part of your school community? Hey, Agent Brown, we're doing a staff thing in the cafeteria. I know you're out here. I'm going to bring your plate out for you so when you go to lunch, you can have that. Oh, here's a school-wide auditorium. Miss Brown, can you hold the desk so that I can bring Mr. Brown into the first day of school um, assembly so that I
Right.
can introduce Mr. Brown to all of the students? Hey, we have a parent teaching conference coming on. Let me have somebody else watch the desk while all of the parents get to meet whoever this consistent greeter or agent is. So immersing them as in part of the school culture and not just having them a fixture that's here so that everybody knows who they are. Everybody is
Right.
acknowledging them as a person. That's the first thing to do. And then if that's still not working as a school leader, you should be able to have that conversation. Hey, listen, here we really need if you can do X, Y, and Z, because I can guarantee whatever company they're working for, there is a standard of conduct of what they're supposed
Right.
to do. And I'm pretty 100% sure that having their phones at their desk is not something that they should be doing. So as a school
Okay.
leader saying, hey, listen, I know it might be, a little boring over here, but can you make sure X, Y, and Z? Having that conversation, maybe once or twice if you need it. And then if it's still not landing, then they have a supervisor, because in the school, unless it's a school staff person, they're not,
Right.
your employee. So having that conversation with their supervisor, like, hey, this is what I'm seeing. This is what's going on. This is the conversations that I had. Either we need another conversation or we need to replace them, if possible. But it's about
Right.
bringing everybody into the community, making everybody feel wanted and a part of. And this is our whole community and not just
Okay.
this piece here, this piece here. And that goes the same for school nutrition staff. They're not just the lunch
Nice.
lady and the lunch guy,
Right.
teaching your students to speak. Thank you. Can I have this if they come for choices? Cleaning up after themselves and doing all of the respectable things as if they were in their own homes, or even if they don't do it in their own home. This is how we do it here, and making sure that everyone is
Right.
included.
Right. Okay. Good. I like the thought process because I think it's important. When I was in management, I would tell my employees there's two roads we can go. I can manage you up or I can manage you out. You just make the decision.
Absolutely.
So let's do this as we about to wrap this thing up. Let's really concentrate on the children of color who are on the margins of failing, and why you created your company to make sure, especially the boys, are getting the proper education, or doing the proper things, or being enthusiastic. In these last 2 years, I've learned that anything that you do, you have to remain curious about, right? And if you don't remain curious about it, you're going to lose your interest in it. So how do we get yeah, that's what I want to say. How do we get our boys to remain curious about education throughout the process, and not just, the studies show that boys between the kindergarten and third grade have this wild imagination of how they want to learn things and do things. Between the fourth and fifth grade, it seems like they flutter off into something else. How do we keep them curious throughout that whole entire process, and explain why you created what you've created, and doing such fabulous work to get them to be curious for the rest of their lives?
Okay, so that was a lot of different parts. So
Yes,
first,
yes.
I want to say that boys learn differently from girls. Research shows that. So how their brain works, how their body moves, how they process information is all genetically different. So speaking to boys, engaging boys, instructing boys is vastly different from girls. Where you said from kindergarten to third grade, curious, into it, bright, all over the place, wanting to learn things in different ways. That's how their minds work. So during my
Right.
research, one of the one of the researchers I looked at was Rashid Goins, and he said, how are our Black boys coming into school brilliant, curious, bright, full of curiosity, and by third grade, they're students at risk and being
Right.
referred to special ed? What happens in between that? So during the research, I found that one, while boys learn different, how the difference projects itself from a Black boy is based on the narrative that has been depicted about the Black boy and the Black man. So you can
Wow.
have, there's been studies on two boys presenting the same exact behavior, but the Black boy is penalized harsher than the next boy because that
Right.
boy is energetic, um,
Right.
active, and the Black boy is aggressive, and it was an
Disruptive.
assault. And
Right.
so there's a hyper criminalization on the bodies of Black boys that already starts to quelch their curiosity, their engagement, their being active at preschool. So
Wow.
another study showed that Black boys in preschool are suspended and expelled at a higher rate than all students K to 12. They're three, they're babies, but they are being penalized for this behavior that one is innate just by that active and movement and needing to go and move.
Right.
So,
Right.
based off of the experience with that first Black boy and then having that understanding of what's happening in preschool, I wanted to go back to understand, so what's lacking, what's that disconnect? And that's why I made my research around the efficacy of classroom engagement. So what is happening in the classroom? How are we engaging Black boys in the classroom for them to even want to learn? And
Okay.
through my research and interviews with Black men, the first thing I found, so I had interviews with Black men who were between the ages of 30 and 60 and asked them about their experiences in early elementary. And the resounding answer was, never saw myself in a curriculum ever. Never
Wow.
saw myself in a book. And it was never expected. I never
Right.
thought that I would. So I wasn't upset that I didn't see it, because why would I see it?
Right.
So at least that has changed now, where we're seeing Black boys as main characters. We're seeing all of these things coming out now. But now the question is, how is it being utilized in the classroom?
Right.
And is it being utilized in the classroom? And is it just an extra thing? So that same boy from my first school experience, we were talking one day because we would just talk. And he said to me, just because my name is, and I won't say his name, but it was a
Right.
basketball player's name. But he said, just because that's my name doesn't mean I want to read books about basketball. And I definitely don't
Wow.
want to read about Junie
Wow.
B. Jones. And he was
Wow.
like, so you have teachers who are like, let me meet their needs.
Right.
Here's a
Right.
basketball book. Here's a baseball book.
Right.
Just
Right.
because that's my
Yeah.
name, or just
Right.
because I'm a Black boy, doesn't mean I'm interested in basketball. Have you asked me?
Right.
I'm
Right.
actually interested in sharks. space. Did you
Science.
ask me? So having
Right.
that understanding. So how are you engaging Black boys in their learning and in your classroom instead of, oh, I have Black boys, let me get this book, culturally responsive text. But did you even talk to them to find out what is going to bring them into the learning? It could
Right.
be all books about space. It could be anything. So looking through the lens of how do you engage Black boys in the classroom, and this doesn't have to be some separate where it's like, okay, I got 25 kids, 5 Black boys, what am I going to do for these 5 Black boys? It's not that. It's keeping it in
Right.
mind and having an understanding. So through my dissertation research, I created an inventory for classroom teachers for reflective practice. And this is something that they could do weekly. It's a quick little checklist. Am I keeping this in mind? Do I know my students well? Have I looked
Right.
at the readings that I did this week? What am I presenting to them? Something where when you're getting ready to do your lesson planning for the week or whatever it may be, you're able to look at this inventory, check, 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 and be reflective and change your practice and make moves that are quick in the classroom. Because when we talk about this, when I looked at the research, and we're talking about for 40 years, they're talking about Black boys are underachieving and they're not reading. Okay, so we've been talking about this for 40 years plus. What is it that we're doing here? Because there's a lot of things swirling around here, and depending on where you're working, oh, the curriculum is not this, and we have to have pacing that does this, and it doesn't allow us to do all of these things. And the teachers that I interview are like, I understand the need, but I don't have the time in the day to do this thing, and that thing.
Wow.
So my research
Wow.
looked at what can we do every day that a teacher can do where you don't need district approval, principal approval,
Right.
a change in curriculum, a change in how you teach, none of that. Just something where right here I can look at it, kind of like a grocery list, and say, let me be
Okay.
reflective. What are my classroom management policies? What is this? Just those things to keep in mind to say, I can do this on a classroom level so that we can start making change one classroom at a time. We have all types of system policies and things that are happening up top. Let that continue to go. Let that grow. But what can we do for the Black boys that are in the classroom? So in that day and
Right.
age with me, I was able to help that Black boy with that issue he was having to help him through what he did for whatever he is right now today. Then keeping that lens, that was always something that I kept in mind. So if you have this reflective inventory where you can say, it's Friday. What did I read with them today? Okay, next week I'm getting ready to plan my lesson. Let me pull this article from here. Let me look at their getting to know you things. Okay, I know he likes tigers. He likes, okay, let me decide what my animal unit is going to look like. It helps you
Right.
make decisions of what's the best way I can impact these kids. Because as a teacher, just because you teach fourth grade doesn't mean you're teaching fourth grade the same way for the next 4 years.
Right.
You
Right.
are ebbing and flowing with those children that you have. So what can I do on a class level with these students during this time? And how am I engaging the Black boy to help build their foundational literacy skills so that by the end of third grade, they are in fact reading and reading proficiently, thereby building as they continue on.
Nice. It's a lot that you said, and all very impactful. Um, I can see the need, but how do we? Again, I'm gonna always go back to reflect on the parents because I believe you don't just take a kid to a fancy restaurant and start yelling at them about using the right fork if you've never sat at home to teach them how to do that. So, how is there a part of your program that sends information home to the parents to say, hey, Tony is interested in sharks, Are you cultivating that at home, right? Are you
Mm-hmm.
allowing him to read books on sharks? Are you he's not he likes sports, but that's not his number one goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is to do sports. Um, I've noticed that when we engage this way, he comes alive and he engages in this thing. How do how,
Mm-hmm.
how do you do does your program have a way to marry that to the parent, or there's a checklist for the parents as well to say, hey,
Mm-hmm.
this is what we need to do?
Mm-hmm.
Because listen, I want to just say this to the people who are listening, especially to the parents. We understand that we live in a world where we have to work one and two jobs. We're trying to have our own social atmosphere and lives, and we can't. I don't want to say can't. Sometimes we don't pay attention to what our kids need because put them in front of the TV, give them the iPad,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
kind of half-heartedly look over the homework. Oh, is it done? Yeah, okay, and just
Mm-hmm.
go about our business. How important it is that they are interacting like a teacher, because that's what they learn first. Is there
Mm-hmm.
something in your curriculum that passes that down to them to say, even if you don't understand this is what your child is doing, and we need you to be involved on some type of level?
Mm-hmm. That will be part of that beginning inventory. So, first day of school, first week of school, you're doing some type of getting to know me with the child. So, depending on the grade level, you're doing some type of activity or worksheet like, what do you like to do? What do you like to play? What do you like to watch? What do you like to read? What are some things that you're interested in? And getting all of that information. With that, you would do a summary sheet for the parents like, hey, this is what Johnny said they like, they do, whatever, and give them the opportunity to give feedback. Is this accurate? Is this what you're seeing at home?
Right,
Add in
right,
anything else that you see and you need, that you would want them to be engaged in. Then you take both of them and you would give like a little synopsis. Okay, so we both, your child and you agree that they like all things space. Your child and you both agree that they like Roblox. Your child said they also like A, B, and C. You said they like E, D, and F, and you knew a little bit about A. So now we have these things. So here's a way that I think that we can cultivate their passions and open up their mind from now until here. So depending on the school, depending on what's going on, I like time frames or benchmarks. So from September to November, consider doing, or September to December, consider maybe taking them to this website, which has a virtual field trip that tells them about space and planets and things. Consider putting them on that link. Here's the link. Here are some places in the area. If you have a Saturday, if you have a free time to take them, this also will spark the interest. This is a list of books that you can get from the library or download from the reading platform that we have for the school, or here's a Ziploc baggie with a couple of these books that speak to that
nice.
interest. These are the things that you can do at home with them and just have like a succinct list, and it can be September to December, January to March, April to June, and that benchmark and that check-in, and it's like, okay, this is what we're going to do at school, this is what we're going to do in the class. These are some suggestions and some things that you can do at home.
All right. Last question for you. We talked about it at the beginning about our kids not being on reading par, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you get them there if the parents can't read?
um, that's your strategies that you're doing in school, because you're not asking the parents to read to them. And
Okay.
a lot of times, my suggestions for parents is listen to them, let them read to
Right.
you, because at home, the practice is not about the mechanics, because you're not asking a parent to be a teacher. I'm
Right.
not trying to get you to go through phonological words or sounds and blends. give them the opportunity to practice. Listen to
Right.
them. So if it's a younger child, let them practice. Go ahead and let them read to you. Sounds right. Makes sense to me. Go ahead. If they have misconceptions or misunderstandings, when they get into class,
Right.
we'll fix that. But you're giving them the opportunity to
Right.
do that repetition. When the same time, and when
Okay.
they get older, you're looking at comprehension and inferencing. So this is whether you can read or not read. If you can read, are you reading all of these fifth grade books that your child is reading? No, absolutely not.
Right.
But if I say to you, tell me about that chapter that you just read. You read? Tell me about the chapter you just read. And they tell me something. I can follow a story. And you can say,
Right.
ask them 1 or 2 questions. I always like to give my parents maybe like 3 questions they can ask. So who was the main character there? So what problem did they have? Well, what happened or what
Right.
happened next? So just give them a couple of standard questions that they can ask. You don't have to have read the story that they read. You're really just prompting their thinking so that they can do more about tending to the reading. So if I'm a parent who can't read and you just told me a story about what you just read, and I say, oh, wow, that's crazy. So they got detention. What happened after they got detention? Did you not read that part? Did you not understand that
Right.
part? You're going to
Right.
have to go
Right.
back and reread to find the answer. So, really, just having the conversations and giving them the opportunity to practice with you where you're not sitting down next to them like, okay, read to me. I don't know. You can do that while you're cooking, while you're folding
Right.
laundry,
Right.
and just
Right.
something
Right.
that's casual. Because also at home, you don't always want that formality of sit down, do your homework. Now we're sitting here. Now we're doing this. You just did that all day long. We're
Right.
in the kitchen.
Right.
We're talking.
Right.
You're at a chair. I'm cooking. I'm folding laundry, and having a more relaxed situation and making it more conversational so that it's less adversarial at home where I'm having to attend to all of this at school. And now when I go home, it's a whole nother military boot camp. You want to
Right.
give that opportunity for more of a leisure tone and just a practice and giving the opportunity to be relaxed and get the information that you need and the opportunity to practice.
All right. Great. So I'm gonna close this out this way. Um, I'm gonna have a question for you at the end, but I want you to give the people a practical way to engage with their children. Uh, if you're aunt or uncle, if you're just a big brother, a mentor in the community, how do you pull all three possibilities together? How do you pull in the school, the parenting, the community to make sure the child grows? How will we do that?
Practically keep it open. Learn who's in your community, politicians, bodega men, coalitions. A lot of times they're different community centers. Know who's in your community. Find out who
Right.
they are. Have conversations with them and see what they have going on to see how they can be a part of the school. Open up that school for parents and have collaboration, not just in isolated events and times, but a stream going through and allowing that opportunity for collaboration on a daily basis. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the big events, but don't make the big events be the only time that this collaboration can happen. Making it open, giving the opportunities to engage and have that time for students, parents, educators, community members to all come together in different ways. So it doesn't have to be this one big thing, but a daily thing that's just
Right.
commonplace.
Okay, cool. Um, my last question for you is about you.
Yeah.
All those things that you have learned in this journey of education and where you are right now, what would you tell that little girl who was running around the projects, racing, about who she would become at this point in her life, if she had any doubts?
I would tell her to keep racing, keep running, because there is no finish line as long as you keep learning and growing and doing what you're doing. You can continue to run and race to the ends of the earth.
All right, great. Fantastic. Listen, sis, I greatly appreciate you giving me your time, especially with the dissertation on coming up in the 2 weeks. I
Oh,
know
it's
you got a
coming.
lot of studying and work out and things to put in, but from our conversation, I think you are absolutely ready for it. I can't wait till you give me the call and say, hey, I got the doctor. I'm the doctor now.
I'm Dr. Beverly.
Right, exactly, exactly.
Yes.
I can't wait for that to happen. I greatly appreciate you. Um, Anything you want to leave for the audience before we clock out?
No, I think I left it all there. I'm just thankful and grateful for you to have me here to have this conversation and just being able to give a little bit.
Right.
Give a little bit of information and knowledge from what I've acquired over these years, and just sometimes allowing you to hear some of the things that you've always heard, but maybe hearing it in a different way. So if one little nugget, if one little piece is something that you'll be able to have a takeaway from, then I'm happy.
Nice, nice. So, Triumphant TV family, I told you I will always bring you something that's going to bring you a higher level of education, of understanding. There are tools in here to help you build your community. I hope you see her name at the bottom. I hope you reach out. Especially if you're walking into a school that needs her assistance to change around the environment and the culture. You see her Instagram is there. You see her email address is there. Please reach out so she can continue to build block by block, school by school, classroom by classroom, to get our Black boys and our children of color, because I know she expands through all areas, our children of color, to expand their education and their understanding of the world, to let them know that they are not who some people say they are. They are the greatest things on the planet, like everybody else is, and they can achieve anything that they want. So, Triumphant TV, we are out. I'll see you on the next episode.